Don't let this moment fade away. Hold tight. Now tears gonna stay. Hold tight.
Hello, everybody. It is, I'm excited. I'm excited. Come on in. Come on in. Come. Yeah, I don't know what we had to go through in the background, but we are here. Happy Small Business Week. But this is what happens when you have a small business, okay? When you have a business, this is what happens. Did y'all hear that background music? I mean, that background? That was funny. That was cute. That was cute. We are live on LinkedIn, we are live on YouTube, and we are live on Instagram. And I'm excited. This is something I've never done. First time being live on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So bear with us. I want to do more of these and allow for you guys to hear from me. So it's Small Business Week. I want to talk to y'all. It's just me. So my name is Larvetta Loftin. I am the founder of the L3 agency. We are a purpose-driven marketing agency. So we work with brands who are making impact in the world and changing the way we look at their brand, whether that is an organization, whether it is a retail business. And we love the work that we do because we get to shape narratives for marginalized communities, for segments that are not being seen, that are not being heard. And this is the evolution of how I built this company. And so I just want to take a breath because actually this year makes 25 years as an entrepreneur. And I will tell you, it's like being 25 years old, right? It's like once you get to be 25, you kind of have a footing on life. You kind of have experienced some things. You're still figuring it out. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that at 25, do I think that we have it all figured out? No. Do I think we are still learning? Absolutely. Have we made an impact? Yes. Have we evolved? Yes. Have we pivoted? Yes, multiple times. And so I think it's important that I share with you this journey and let you know. So when I think about 25 years, like how I've had to look at business, going from being this fellow entrepreneur to now being this owner and principal company that manages teams and ensures that our clients are getting the best from us. That's a lot. Then it's paying taxes. Then it's, going after capital. Like those are the things that small businesses are faced with. And then there are things where we can't run away from. And some of that is sometimes hiring the wrong people, sometimes saying yes to the wrong clients. Those are things that small businesses are faced with. I will just say this, what keeps me grounded is my faith. Everything that I do, I consult with God. Everything. Is this something that you see that I need to pursue? Is that something that I need to delete? Is there alignment? And it's hard. I will say this hard because sometimes I see something that I think we should pursue and God will say no, or there's tension. And that's tension to let me know that that's not the direction. But I didn't know that when I first got into business. Today, my discernment is real loud. It's very loud. And when that alignment doesn't align, then I know that that's not something, or let me say this, because God's going to give us free will. That just knows that, I mean, that just tells me that that could be a detour. And I think we take a lot of detours that comes from fear as a small business owner, from ignorance because we're not aware, and I also think it's also shame. I think sometimes the shame is what keeps us, right? The shame of, yeah, I did that the last time, it didn't work. So I'm not going to pursue that. So I do think, and we can say it's rooted in fear, and it is. I don't think we do enough of knowing that it's shame. And so as the founder of the L3 agency, I really have to say that one of the things that made me start this business was the pain that I experienced as a marketing professional. I recognize that I come with energy and passion and all of the things, and sometimes I'm not accepted. And a matter of fact, most of the time I wasn't accepted. And so I wanted to create a space where, women can come in and they can be seen as brilliant creatives. And honestly, I've worked and had the pleasure of having so many amazing individuals work with me. And I guess I'm inspired by the impact that my team has made, whether that was with me, outside of me. That is what keeps me going. So mentorship is a huge thing for me, and making sure that we are going beyond um, um, our clients, right? Because the fact that we get to do the work that we do, that's exciting. There's not a day that, I mean, like, I wake up every day expected, with expectation that we're going to make a difference. And so I'm looking at my notes. Um, and so I want to say my approach in building this company, the L3 agency, is using kindness. It's being kind to all of the players that matter in business. And that comes from my dear and late mom, right? She used to tell me, be kind to the janitor, be kind to the security guy, because those individuals just might be the voice that someone needs to hear. They're trying to make a decision, and their decision might be based on those people that you believe don't matter. And so I challenge you to not look at titles, that you're kind to all people. Kindness is not wrapped up in what color you are, where you live, what your background might be. I think it is the most unappreciated characteristic. And so for me, it's been my approach. And so we believe in that. And our approach, even as an agency, is also to be thoughtful, and is we take a thoughtful approach and how marketing is, presented. And that took a while because I came from very consumer driven. And so making sure that we are mission centered. And so, for most people, I want everyone to understand that I majored in mass communication. So I was a radio, TV, film girl. Like, I love the work of storytelling. I love that. I love to tell them. I love to be able to be that voice. And today I'm actually sitting in the seat, as the founder of the L3 agency, but also as the host of Black Businesses Matter. It took me a while to get there. It really did, because I was told that by a director that I would not make it in television because of my passion, and the fact that I was, so connected to the stories. And it deflated me. It really did, because I felt like I couldn't be seen in these newsrooms, that no one looked like me. And so that forced me to have to look at, just what was I doing? Like, really, what was I doing? And the mere fact that I knew that I can make an impact, and that impact was telling the good news of corporations and the things that they were doing and the good news of their businesses, and and pivoting and revolutionizing their brand. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is what I want to do. This is what I was created on this earth to do. And my mother would tell me, girl, you know how to work a room. And I didn't necessarily know that was a gift. I thought that's just what everybody did. And she said, you work a room so that you can make a difference in the world. And so that has carried me to this point. And I will be honest with you, when we started in this business, it started under the name the L3 Eventors. And while we still hold on to that from an email, it was important because Eventors was this idea of events being very entrepreneurial driven, right? And that the idea that creating events creates connection, which ultimately allows for us to be entrepreneurial in the way that we see things. And then we were doing events and creating experiences. And so I was like, okay, what if it looks like it's like 12 entrepreneurs all working together to build a common ground to tell this story for our clients? That's how I saw it, right? And so here's where here's where the dirt. This is the dirt. This is the dirt. So I'm gonna drop the dirt because honestly, we think I show up and it's all glamorous. It's not. But here's the dirt. The dirt was when I started to look inside my business and realize we were not making a profit, that we were out here going to events. Let me tell you something. I was at All Stars, Super Bowls, CIAA. I mean, we were all over literally the country, sharing the good news, creating experiential campaigns for our clients. That's what we were doing. But what was happening was we weren't making any profit. And so having worked with celebrities, like I was in the rooms before there was social media and we were, literally shaping their narratives. But what was happening was we weren't making any money. And so I thought we were, because here I am like, hey, my friends like, where are you at? Oh, I'm in such and such. I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Miami. I'm in all these cool places. But my books said that we weren't making money. So it wasn't until then that I decided that I wanted them to see us as a viable strategy company where we can really create create outcomes that could be impactful. And, it was important for me. And so when I said, changing the whole brand name and operating, if you see what that looked like, probably like 7 years ago and where we are today, you know, there is still some similarities, but we had to evolve. We had to evolve because we wanted people to start to see us as a brilliant firm that delivers exceptional content, that we are strategic in how we do it, that we can build partnerships that only us could get to. Because I say, one of the things that we sell is access, that we will get across to the other side, because of our ability to be able to use communication strategies to do that. And so marketing is an opportunity to use science, math, right, and the arts. And so we could combine that, but it takes communication skills to be able to do that. And that was, the background that I had come from, and being able to communicate in all platforms, right? And having this omni approach. Whereas when we were doing events, they only saw it like, just go do the event. Just go do this event, right? They didn't see the power of connection, the power of community. And we're seeing that now. But back then we were building community. We were allowing for people to touch and feel products on college campuses, all over the world. we were doing campus, we were on campuses doing that. We were working with spirit brands to be able to take a spirits brand and go into rooms that they ordinarily would not have been able to do, and create tastings and create experiences and create community and create, a family. And so that was something that I was doing, right? So working lots of hours, working 12, 15 hours per day. And, realizing it wasn't until that when I decided to shift what we do and work now into utilities and in the space of sustainability, that I started to realize that I needed to change some things about the way we do business. And so, as a small business owner, you have to be open to pivot. And so that's important. And so one of my biggest wins, and I say in my career, when we went from like L3 Eventers to the L3 agency, is when we landed our own contract with Verizon. We were the agency of record for the Midwest. That was huge. And that we were not a sub, that this was our direct client. And that's when I realized that it was time for us to make that shift, that we could hold our own. It was all about team building. It was like, who was going to be loyal and ride with me on this journey? Because it is a journey, right? And so understanding that as small businesses. And so now we're in this D&I shift, right? Let me say this. We didn't jump on that when it was hot. We don't jump in trends. We allow ourselves to be trendsetters. So we create things where people can have thought leadership, right? Because it's about thought leadership. As an agency, we are diverse in thought. Everyone comes with shared experiences, backgrounds that all may not look like, but that's been going on for years, that brands would see Black people as one way, as monolithic, and we're not. And so you have a segment of Black people that are extremely ultrally wealthy. Then you have, people that are middle class, and how they shop, what they drive, what they spend their money is very different. And so I remember working with McDonald's and years ago, and how they saw single moms as Black moms. And today, single moms is not necessarily means it's negative. It's just sometimes there's factors. It could be a divorce. It could be, as a widow. It could be a number of reasons, but we never dived into the real story of where how that single mom shows up, right? And so co-parenting, that you can co-parent a child. There can be a single dad and a single mom co-parenting, and we hadn't heard that story of understanding that level of diversity and that storytelling. And so the fact that we get to insert ourselves, to be able to align ourselves with brands and companies that are okay with telling that story, to be able to connect and bring people. And that's what we're doing at the L3 agency. And so I think that it is so important and vital for our ecosystem to understand that this idea of D&I, it's not a program, that it literally is about understanding our lived in experiences and how do we advance to be able to make an impact. And so when I look at D&I, right, I really want to make sure that that we're being economically inclusive, that we're communicating inclusively, right? And understand that, as a business, we always ask, is email your form of communication? Is texting your form? Is picking up the phone, right? Using all of these tools to be inclusive, because not all people respond the same way. And it's hard. Like, I have a code. Our difference, being different is not a deficient. And we have to understand that. But I think that's the problem that we're dealing with, right? Is realizing that inclusion is the way to go, and understanding equity in that space, and also being culturally sensitive, right? Because someone, and I do want to share this story, that, that there's parts of the world that doesn't have Wi-Fi. And that just happened a couple of years ago. And so while we were challenging people to get online and to get on to listen to school, to go to school, they didn't have Wi-Fi. So it was really being able to be culturally sensitive, because some of us have access to things that others don't have access. And so recognizing that, it was important for us as an agency that we sound the alarm to our clients to make them understand, like, you're talking to an audience of people that don't have Wi-Fi. So there's an assumption that people have it. And so I think it's important that we ask more questions and be more curious as we communicate, to make sure that we are providing that customer or that stakeholder, whoever that targets, that we are being sensitive to what they are. And as marketers, right? If someone asks me, Larvetta, you know everything about marketing. What I do know is what my audience is faced with, because I'm tuned in to what's happening around, and making sure that I am in rooms where I can lean in, that I can listen, at the same time provide value. Because as a marketer, you got to be a listener. And a lot of times we were just, like marketing, posting, promoting this. And I say now it's really listening and understanding where people are and meeting them there. And so, as a founder of an agency that is purpose driven, we're going to always make sure that we're listening, that we're taking time to be able to do that. And it's challenging, though. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to tell you it's easy, because it's not. But one of the things happened in this part of pivoting into the utility space from a sustainability standpoint occurred during COVID. We were doing lives during COVID to be engaged with our community, to ensure that our communities knew where the shifts, where marketing was going, where you needed to invest, how you needed to pivot your company. We were doing that. And so what it taught me was, I wanted to get back to the mic. I wanted to be able to use my platform to be able to share the access that I was blessed to receive, because it is, again, access. I've worked with, so many notables all across the world. From the Michael Jordans to the Magic Johnsons, to also the CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies. I did not promote those stories, right? Because I was there to build impact. And I think we spend so much time promoting the people we're with versus really being able to create those meaningful connections to be able to drive impact. And that's what we want to see happen, whether that's national or international. And so that's where L3 is moving into. We're moving into being an international player and ensuring that people can come to us in this world, right? We're outside of Chicago, but realizing that we also have the capacity to be able to stretch our arms and do more work internationally. So that's something that we're working on. And so when we decided to build our flagship podcast called Black Businesses Matter, it was because what I saw is what happened. I saw that all the money and the brands were going and throwing all their money to these companies, and these companies were receiving it. You were seeing billions and billions of dollars. And I said, what's going to happen is we're going to lose sight of these Black businesses. I saw it, because remember, I don't follow trends. I'm a trendsetter. And so I said, we've got to set a trend to be able to, hey, Scott, to be able to shift the way that we look at Black businesses. And so when you take a podcast and you can talk to the world, all over the world, right? That we can be able to shift a narrative that literally shifts how we see Black businesses. And that's why we built it, because we needed to tell this story, that the story hasn't been told, that Black businesses are the largest employers of Black people. That is how I get to sit at this table. I get to sit at this table because I worked for an agency that was ran by a Black woman and a Black man who shaped how I was able to do what I do. And that story wasn't being told. That story was, and we were working for Fortune 500 brands, and they were paying us good money. So this idea that, Black businesses don't pay, that's not true, right? And so realizing that that was important, and I will be honest with you, it wasn't easy, because my friends were like, no, you need to work for the big, and again, nothing against any of them, because I love the fact that we can be diverse. And someone says, how do you define diversity? How I define diversity has less to do with the color of my skin. It has more to do with my experiences. It has more to deal with where I shop, where I go to receive help. All these things, from shared experiences to what I drive, to the things of the people that I surround myself with, my network, right? We've said my network is my net worth. But it creates diversity. So that means in age, when you see we're not all the same. We all come from different backgrounds, and age is a huge factor, right? Gender is a factor, right? All of these define diversity. And I wish that we can come away from that, because as a podcast, producer now, I've been able to produce 100 episodes. We crafted this content. We did the guest outreach. When we first started, we had a list of like 45 people that we wanted to get on the podcast. I had what if they said no? What if, I was prepared for that. What happened was everyone started to say yes, and that scared the life out of me, because I was and that's where we have to be careful, because you can actually get yes on the other side, but I was prepared for the no's. So there was good thing, right? But there was parts where I felt like I was so prepared that we were getting all these yeses. People were like, yes, I want to tell my story. Yes, yes. So I literally was like, oh my gosh, that's when you recognize that people wanted to share their story. They really had a voice, and they wanted to be on a platform. This is mine, right? It's just my platform. I'm not run through, a network where we can't really shine light on this. And a lot of times that's what I saw. And, as someone who was a radio, TV, film, coming out of Clark Atlanta University, I saw films specifically pay Black actors and actresses and producers and directors make a lot of money. So I was like, we have to make sure that shifts. And so that was important for me, having worked on that side. And I think podcasting allows for our voice to go beyond, this from a proximity standpoint, based on our networks, that there are people all over the world that can tap in and learn about these stories of why Black businesses started their business, right? So, having interviewed 100 people, I need you guys to sit with that. So I literally gave my time, because I do It's my time. It's fully funded by me and my company. And so we use it as a tool to be able to shape stories and create, this platform where people can log in, and there's no barrier, right? It's inclusive. So you don't have to go onto social media, right? You can Google Black Businesses Matter and hear episodes from people all over, all ages, all backgrounds, how they got into entrepreneurship. It's not all technology. I remember we started these shirts, and on the back of the shirt, you probably can't see, we literally, pulled all of the industries that Black businesses were playing, from real estate to food. It was just so much. And so we started to just do all this research, and we were finding that there were Black businesses in all of these industries, but we hadn't heard about these stories. We hadn't heard how they started. What was their catalyst for starting? And you will be surprised that so many people, got laid off. And so this was the start of it. That mental health happened, whether that was losing a person. And so we started to see that was how they were able to shape their businesses. And so when I look at then versus now, what I see as a difference is then we were able, I think that there was a little bit more level of collaboration, right? So, but the evolution of collaboration is, when I think of Black Businesses Matter, what I want to be able to see is someone that listened to one of our episodes, reached out, created a partnership, created a deal. There was an acquisition deal. There was an opportunity for them to co-create something. That's what we are building, this ecosystem of business owners that when people come to me and they say, hey, do you know? Yeah, go to this episode, learn about them. Do you know? That's what we built. We were wanting, because it started during COVID, to be able to mitigate the lies that were being told, and quite frankly, the narratives that were not true. And so it was important for me to start to shift that narrative, because I was a byproduct of a Black business that really shaped my views, that built my skills, my professional acumen, and the cadence that I have was, coming from this, phenomenal, marketing genius. And so, Scott, you said our camera. Oh, that's awesome. Please. Yes, we'll drop the camera info in the chat, because this is the studio where you were actually a guest on. And so I think that's funny that you're saying that, but yeah, he's got some great cameras in here. So again, there's an ecosystem. There is an ecosystem that we're building. So when I look at my podcast, my team, my associate producer, Katori Shepherd, when she started with me, she jumped right in. We have our wonderful audio engineer who now does our videos now, Delvin, so we have literally created this ecosystem. And so I have to say that it feels good to be able to shape stories. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm unapologetically supporting Blacks. Like, I travel far to get it. I'm going to be that person that's going to find a product, for my friends, for birthdays, and just introduce. And sometimes we have to introduce, our communities, our networks into a business. We have to mitigate, this thing that, working with Black businesses, they always, late. That's another thing. Or we have been told, they don't do, no, they cost too much. Why they got to cost? Like, all of these things that we don't understand is part of the reason why we don't get paid what we deserve. So when we go to these banks, they know what's being said about us. I am currently in the process of a capital raise, and understand that it is important for me that when I'm going in, I'm not just speaking for myself, that I'm speaking for other Black businesses, because we have to change the narrative so that they understand that we are not all the same. And I will say this, for Black businesses, the banks will say, well, it's okay if you have bad credit, right? Because they assume that that's where we show up. we've got bad credit. Our families are disjointed. Like it's amazing to me the things that people have said to me as a founder. I remember being in a meeting with a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and he said to me, "Oh, you're the assistant." And I was like, no, I'm the founder because I wasn't, what he thought. He was looking for something different and I was not, molded. And we have to stop doing that we have this thought of how a person has to show up, as a small business owner if they run, in this particular industry. Because as long as we're delivering exceptional quality, that's just me. So realizing that is important. And so I think the vision of podcasting is one thing that I'm learning as a podcaster is like, I used to have a show called, Get Down to Biz. Let's Get Down to Business. I had a radio show. It was a streaming show. It was called Let's Get Down to Business. And I feel like Let's Get Down to Business was because I was then sharing that we need to focus on the business at hand. Okay, so fast forward 2025, I'm still that same person. So it's okay if you move from a different brand, but your why needs to remain the same. Your why has to show up. And so I always use the example of Oprah. Oprah left, morning show TV to be able to give us more access to her when she launched her own network. That was an opportunity that she had the ability to impact more people, not just in, television and other, industries. And so many people complained and was like, oh, but she decided that it was time to shift. And shift in a way, right? And now she's doing podcasting. So I'm saying, okay, she's into podcasting, but she's doing it on her terms, right? She's deciding that I'm going to do it without the live audience, that I'm going to do it where I get to bring people the same thing she was doing. So I just want people to understand podcasting is just the evolution. I was already doing this. I was already sitting down. I was already talking to people. Now I get to share with the world so you can basically get access to my Rolodex. You could get access to the people that I know and be able to grow in the areas, right? That you can tap in and learn from others so that you can build a company that others would want to to want to work with. And so I love the fact that I am able, to be able to sit in the room with friends, and colleagues and, people that I respect that are advocates and be able to allow their stories to be told. To me, that's what makes me happy. That's what brings me joy. And so the reason why on our podcast, Black Businesses Matter, we say what brings you joy is because I had done so much research around joy. And what I found is that we didn't talk about our joy, but it comes from post-traumatic slavery. That if we shared the joy of our children and what was happening, that slave masters would either take our kids, take us away from our families. That was happening. So while I get frustrated because some of us don't share that, but I also know that has been generationally passed down from slavery and that we are still traumatized from that, from our ancestors. And so I said on my podcast, we're going to ask, what brings you joy? And because we want to shine light on the work that we're doing and allow for people to understand that in the midst of building a company, capital, that there's still joy in our hearts to do it, whether it's the joy of having a cup of coffee, walking our kids, to school, being able to show up for parents and grandparents in the way that we couldn't because we have the flexibility. That joy the joy of being able to, buy a house or buy a car because of the work that you put in as an entrepreneur. Like all of that needs to be told. And that wasn't being told. And so Black joy is a currency, and it hadn't been told because our currency was based on work, 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 not based on the power of the joy that we have. And the joy, the reason why I call it Black joy is because we were robbed of sharing that joy. And so our podcast, you get to hear this story and become overjoy that their stories are being told, that they're still doing it. And some of our, be honest with you, some of our business owners have pivot where they started when we had them on a show, shifted. Let's go back to Oprah. Some of the stories that Oprah told, right, back then, some of them are doing something different. So allow people to evolve, but there's still opportunities to make connections and community. That's important. And so when I think about what's next, I always say, what's next for me? What's next for the company? What's next for everything? My next is we are building a media empire, right? We have this and we're doing it on our own. Around this is we are building. So now we have the podcast, we have our mag, which is called BBBM Map. So if you go to our website, you can download our mag, which is short for magazine, but it also correlates I'm from Chicago, born and raised on the south side of Chicago, that it was important when I was a child that we went to Mag Mile to get all the things that were luxurious, whether it was food, clothing, culture, you name it. And so we want to see that our mag represent what Magnificent Mile looks like. But these are magnificent companies and brands and stories being told. Like, what would it look like? I remember a guest said, what would it look like if we were overfunded? That we had access to all the things that could really impact our life. And when I say that is we had enough staff, we had enough IT, we had enough money. Like, what would that really look like? And so the mag is a conversation piece. We did print out some of them. And so it's an opportunity for you to be able to engage in a way. Print is not dead. It's a complement to technology and digital. So I think it's right. Printed photos still ring the same, right? It's in your phone, but when it's on that shelf or in that picture frame or on that wall, guess what? It evokes an emotion that is, to me, is probably not unlike anything. So I want you to look at that differently, that when you see the art that we place in this digital mag is so beautiful, that we keep it vibrant, we keep it colorful, because that's important for us, that the struggle that we've had to face was purposeful. And so let's shine light. Let's build greater impact and let's continue in that role. So I will say, but I will say some of my challenges with this has been really engaging to get people to really see what we're doing. I'll be honest with you, that's my challenge. My challenge is, getting people to understand that we want these stories to be told and we were willing to invest in them, but getting people to want to invest in us at the same level. We're adding ads so you can, have an ad run in our mag and on our podcast that we're adding. We don't charge anybody to come to our show. There are people that are, right? And it's fine. Right. But that's not what we're doing over here. And so I think one of my challenges was that. And if you look at our first podcast to where we are, the sound was different. So we had to constantly, level up and upgrade. And so I think my challenges was, preparing for the upgrade and what that looks like, and not knowing that I may not have it all figured out. And then I think the challenges also was, how will people see our podcast and see the correlation of us as an agency? And so I think those were some challenges that we have, because we have this incredible agency And then we have this podcast. And so we're trying to help companies to realize that they can use podcasting as a tool to be able to share, their business, but also show the impact of what their podcast is doing. And so as we support small business week, I say support small businesses, right? I say small businesses because I think in Chicago, a small business is 0 to, I think it's like 30 million, maybe more than that. And so, right. And so there's some people that's like, hey, I make 100,000, but there are people that literally make $10 million that are small businesses. And so I do think that, it's that range. So I believe that at some point the word should be enterprise. I'm building an enterprise. I'm building an empire. That is also a small business. And so recognizing that it's important that we do that, that it's important and we support, listen to the podcast, support these businesses, shout them out. That's been my challenge. My challenge is that people don't share. They don't. We share, but we don't see people share. We share. I think it's interesting, right? We share the bad stuff. We also share, weddings, love, and I love that. But we really don't share these businesses, and I think it's just more of that. And I think on this platform, we want to share. If we've had 118 episodes, if somebody just asked me, can you introduce me to an attorney? I was like, yeah, we had an attorney on our show. She's fantastic, right? That's how it works. So I literally like to say that I'm sharing my Rolodex. These aren't my friends, but these are people, I think they are. They're part of my BBM fam. And so if you want to join, our community, we have a text message. It is 312-300-1300. It's at the bottom. You can text and join our family so that we can hear your stories. Maybe you want to collaborate with us. Maybe you want to run an ad with us in our digital mag. We just have so many opportunities to co-partner with you. And so I really would like to see that happen. And so, yes, we have some, and then we've got some live events that's happening. So when you join our family, we invite you to some of these lives that we're doing. We did one in February for Black History Month. We're doing one for Juneteenth. I'm super stoked about it. Whenever I get to be into the room and connect with people, and that connectivity, it's just powerful. And again, my mother said, you know how to work a room. So I guess for me, being in that room, it's electric for me. I can't do them all because obviously I've got other responsibilities and other obligations. So we're doing these per quarter. And so we're doing one that I'm excited about. And it's Wednesday, June 19th in Chicago. And so, we call this BBM Live. We're on the road. And, so you get to come and be a part of it, be a part of our community, and be in the room. Again, when I talk about, as women, they was like, have a seat at the table. I'm over it, right? We need to own our tables, own our rooms, own the spaces that we're in. And I am going into spaces that are owned by Black people, like owned, and hear their stories, places that people have never walked in. People have said, I walk past that place all the time. I didn't know. And so challenging us, because as an owner, as an agency owner, we are educating people around energy efficiency. And so in Black Businesses Matter, we're educating people on the diversity, that the impact that Black businesses are making in this world are just indescribable. I promise you, it's indescribable. So the fact that you can come in and participate with us live would mean a lot. We're going to have an incredible guest that's got 20, you think I got 25, I think he's got like 27 years, an entrepreneur. He's got, he's got a building, and the connectivity that he's creating is phenomenal. And so he's been a friend of mine and in my network for several years. And so again, I told you, and I love what I do. I believe you have to do what you love. I don't know anything else because this is what I've been doing all my life, practically 25 years. And I'm still getting started in some areas. I'm still exploring. I'm still discovering. I'm still learning new things. I'm actually excited about learning new things. And so I want to say to all my small businesses out here, all over the world, keep doing what you're doing. It matters. Small businesses are the engines and the drivers for our economy. And so while there is an attack against DNI, ask yourself, what can we do to get better? And I do think that how we get better is how we engage to build culture, less about, this idea of a DNI is really about building culture, building community, building collaborations. How can you do what you do? If you were to collaborate, I collaborate with so many people to build this podcast and to build my agency. It's not just me, it's a we thing. And so recognizing that that's important. So I challenge you to make sure that happens. And so in this effort for Small Business Month, support a small business in your community, wherever that might be. Think about small businesses as places where young people get to learn skills. I learned at a very early age. I worked for a Black woman who had a daycare center, and she taught me everything it was to be kind. Coming from a home where my mom was like that, and she represented that. We were spiritually grounded. And so that was a small business. It was a daycare center. I worked on the evenings. Think of your small businesses as places where your children can gain skills and knowledge and be able to say, I do know, a small business. I have worked at a small business. That's the stories that we have to be able to tell. And that's what matters, because in order to create vibrant neighborhoods, we need vibrant businesses. And that's what small businesses do. They bring vibrance. And so when you see that small business on that corridor where you live, think about the impact that they're doing. So when, whether they're in neighborhoods where students can come in there and purchase, whether they are building something where students can engage in an activity, that matters. So stand up, support. And support looks so many different ways. I tell people money is one, volunteering, leaving a review, mentioning their name. Like, all of these things matter for a small business. And here's what a small business needs: feedback. So when you go to that small business and they don't give you what you want, tell them. They need to hear that. They need to know that their phone number is not working. Not to say, I called that business and they didn't pick up. No. Send them, find a way, let them know, hey, I just discovered your phone isn't working. Be able to share those things. Don't go on and put a Google review and say their phone, because they just may not know, because we wear so many hats. And that's where, we might be missing, because we're dealing with the taxes. We're building our business plans. We are asking for more money. So we're focused on that. We're adding more people to our team. We're learning a new software. All of these things are happening all at the same time. And so we don't know that. You go to their website. Oh my gosh, girl, I went to their website and it say it's not working. Tell them. Do not go back and tell someone, I don't want to go with them because their website, they may not know, because they're busy building other people's businesses and companies and brands. So really be sensitive to that. Support our small businesses, support your small business in your community. Look at them very differently. And how they can work, figure out how they can be part of your ecosystem. If you work for corporations, how they can collaborate with you, because we certainly believe in that. We believe that word of mouth is still very impactful, whether it's on social media, whether it's a text, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a Google review. all of that matters. So understand that if they know that you are speaking of them in other rooms, that means that they're doing something right. And then my last thing for small businesses is give a kind word to that small business. I challenge our podcast around that. I send a card to my friends that are doing amazing in their businesses, but give them a small word. Say, we thank you for small business. Let me tell you something. American Express does it. They have a platform for Small Business Saturday because there's something that they're doing. They're rewarding small businesses. They want us to have their credit card, which we get, right? It's also acknowledging the fact that they too, are employing, people and giving them, really reasonable jobs that they can actually grow, whether it's, professionally, financially, all the things. So happy Small Business Week. And so if you can, today, this week, shine light on some small businesses and just let them know that they're doing an amazing job in creating culture and community. So this is Larvetta Loftin, host of Black Businesses Matter and the founder of the L3 Agency. For those that have been rocking with us to the very beginning, thank you. For those of you all that are new and are just now starting to rock with us, we got so much more to share with you as our advocates, as our new folks. And so thank you. You can, go to our website, the l3agency.com. It's so much information. We have blogs. You can download our mag, even hear about my story on as being a mentoring queen, being on national network. You can just hear about so many things. You can go to, all of our channels to really learn about what we're doing as a brand, because we just don't just do marketing, we impact rooms. So thank you guys and happy Small Business Week. Woo! That was a lot.